start with this one. I'm sure most of you have heard already that Shawn Porter has rejected $1 million for a Crawford fight offered to him by Bob Arum. He says, "Don't lowball me." He's quoted as saying, "We're fighting next year as long as the money is right," said Porter about him being willing to fight Crawford if the money is right in 2021. "I'm not taking $1 million," said Porter to the Porter Way podcast. "I've done the best I could in sending a message to Bob Arum, and I also know people that know Bob. I've told them, tell Mr. Arum I don't mean any disrespect, and I know he doesn't. If you're going to lowball me, don't do it. I feel that's how you get out of fighting me. That's weak. Don't do it. However, if you want to make the fight happen, don't lowball me. I'm worth more than $1 million. Fuck $1 million. I'm going to keep it as clean as possible, but I'm not fighting Terence Crawford for $1 million, said Porter. If that's all Top Rank is offering, Porter is $1 million for a fight against Crawford. It's clear he's on his way out the door with the promotional company. I've already expressed my disinterest in fighting Keith Thurman, but again, I understand if that's the only thing I can get and he turns up and gets an injury or something like that, then you may not see Shawn Porter fight in 2021. I'm not fighting one of these young guys. There are guys that haven't earned the right to be in the ring with me, and I'm not going to take a step back, said Porter. Shawn Showtime Porter isn't saying how much he wants for a fight against Crawford, but you have to assume it's more than the $2 million Kell Brook received for his recent clash against Bud. This is yet another conversation taking place in the welterweight division that always ends up being more about business and less about boxing. I'm not against the fight. I never have been.
Good fucking fight.
Don't misunderstand me when I say this. I'm against the proposition that Terence Crawford should have to prove something to Errol Spence Jr. in order to unify titles with him. I am against that proposition that he should have to abide by or adhere to orders from Errol Spence Jr. in order to get a unification match. I am against that proposition. I'm against the proposition that Terence Crawford, a 3-division champion, I'm against the proposition that he has to prove something to Errol Spence Jr. in order to get a fight with him when Mikey Garcia didn't have to prove anything in the welterweight division. And he got the Errol Spence Jr. fight, so why should the rules change for Terence Crawford? That is what I'm against.
That shit.
That he should have to go through some kind of a gauntlet, some kind of an obstacle course before landing an Errol Spence Jr. fight. That is what I'm against. But if in the mean and between time, a fight like this can be made, I'm all for it, so long as all the aforementioned parties are able to reach terms. The thing is, they're not able to reach terms. And it's because of what I always told you. What is it that Shawn Porter wants to make for this fight? Especially in this climate, in this landscape. You still got guys running around talking about what Amir Khan got for the goddamn Crawford fight when there wasn't a global pandemic when Khan fought Crawford. Moreover, Shawn Porter wasn't offered some exorbitant amount of money to take on Errol Spence Jr. in a unification match. The guaranteed price to Shawn Porter for that fight was $2 million.
Up front.
And that's when Porter was a champion, when he was bringing a belt to the table. The most your own people were willing to put up for you was $2 million. So why would you expect Bob to put up in excess of that when you don't even have a belt anymore?
Why would you expect him to put up more than they did?
I'm not telling you that all Shawn Porter made from the Spence fight was $2 million. Maybe he made more from the upside. I don't know, because I don't know if there was an upside. There are varying reports reporting varying sets of pay-per-view buys in association with the Spence versus Porter fight, but I'm not telling you all the guy made from the fight was $2 million. I'm telling you that's all they put up for him. That's the amount of money up front they gave him. $2 million. And that's when he was a reigning world champion.
So why would you expect Bob to put up more when you ain't even got a belt?
There's a lot to be said about this situation, and there's a lot that's not being said. Shawn Porter is in a pole position to challenge Terence Crawford for the WBO title as Terence's mandatory challenger. That affords Shawn Porter certain rights. That if you push for the mandatory and you don't like the kind of money that Bob's putting up for the fight, what you can do after that is push for a price bid. And we already talked about this in a previous video. We already talked about this before. That if you don't like the kind of money that Bob's putting up for the fight, what you can do is have your people push for the price bid. And if you're worth more than just $1 million, like you say you're worth more than just $1 million, then have your own fucking guys put up the money. Let Al Heyman flip the belt.
Because you're worth so goddamn much.
Really isn't complicated. I mean, if the people on your side of it are willing to put up more money because you're worth more than just $1 million, as you say, if the people on your side are willing to put up more money for the fight, then the fight happens on your side of the street and you get the kind of money that you're looking for. That is, if you actually are worth more than what Bob Arum is willing to put up.
So why aren't Sean's people putting up offers?
And why aren't Sean's people pressuring the WBO, pushing for the mandatory, and saying about going to a purse bid? Why does it seem like Sean Porter is yet another PBC fighter that's relying on Top Rank to flip the bill? We heard the stuff about Keith Diamond already. Now we're seeing the same thing with Sean Porter. Except Sean, unlike Keith, is in a pole position to become Terrence's mandatory challenger. And as a mandatory challenger, he would be so empowered with certain rights. One among them is pushing for a purse bid if they can't come to an agreement. If he doesn't like the money. And he doesn't seem to like the money, so, just pressure the WBO.
You want the fight, right?
I mean, that's what you and your father have been telling everybody, right? That's the fight that you want. Okay, if you really want the fight, that's all you gotta do.
That's it.
And if you're worth more than just $1 million that Bob Arum is willing to put up for you, if you're worth more than that, then why aren't the people on your side of the street obliging you? It's your title shot, after all.
Do you want the fight or do you not want the fight?
This reads as posturing to me. As far as I'm concerned, that's what this is, because Sean's not talking about pressuring the WBO to enforce the mandatory and enforce a purse bid because they can't come to an agreement. That's really not what Sean is talking about. What Sean is talking about is sitting out the whole of 2021.
Why the fuck would you do that?
If Sean Porter actually took up Bob Arum's $1 million offer, you do realize there's still potential there to make more money than that, to make more off of the upside, the pay-per-views upside. Whatever it brings in after it breaks even. Seems to me that Sean Porter and other fighters like him that ask for these exorbitant guarantees, that ask for all this money up front, I guess they just don't have much faith in their own selling power. I mean, they must not, because nobody's telling you that all you're going to make for the fight is just $1 million. There's still a chance that if the pay-per-view does well, you'll make in excess of $1 million off the pay-per-view's upside.
You don't think the pay-per-view's gonna sell?
Oh, you don't think it's gonna do well? You don't think it's gonna do well enough that you'll make more than just $1 million coming from Bob Arum? Well, if you don't think that, then why should Bob? Like I said, I don't really understand it, because, Sean's guaranteed purse, the money that was put up front for him to unify with Errol, wasn't some exorbitant amount of money. It was a meager $2 million.
That's it.
And that's when he was a champion. That's when he was bringing a belt to the table. So why would you expect more now that you don't have a belt? You've already done the PBC merry-go-round, PBC musical chairs with Keith Diamond and Danny Garcia and Yordenis Ugas and Errol Spence Jr. You say you don't want to have to fight any prospects, any of these younger fighters, because they haven't earned a fight with you.
What?
Whatever the fuck that means. Listen, a lot of this is going to fall on deaf ears with the average boxing fan, because the average boxing fan's a fucking idiot. No idea of the sport's infrastructure. It looks a certain way from the outside looking in if you're not privy to certain information. But, from where I'm sitting, this is just a lot of posturing. Because if Sean really feels that he's worth more than just the $1 million that Bob's willing to put up, then let his own people stake the cash. Let his own people
bear the risk.
Put the money up if you're so goddamn worth it, if you're so sure. Otherwise, you don't really want this fight.
It's your opportunity.
It's your title shot. It's your chance. After having played musical chairs with most every PBC welterweight, most everyone who's anyone on your side of the street, this is your opportunity to become a world champion once again. Do you want it or do you not want it?
Because all this shit is for the birds.
If you want the shot and you think you're worth more than what Bob Arum has to offer, you push for the shot. Your own people will put up the goddamn scratch. Your own people will put up the goddamn cash because they think you're good for it. But if they don't, it's likely because they feel how Bob feels. And it's like I said before, when the PBC put together that Sean Porter versus Errol Spence Jr. unification match, they didn't pay Sean through the nose to do it. All they put up was $2 million for that guy, and that's when he was a reigning world champion.
And you're expecting more than that from someone else now that you're not a reigning world champion? Am I understanding this?
At the start of this video, I warned you guys that this is one of those fights in the welterweight division, one of those conversations that ends up being more about business and less about boxing, and, that really hasn't changed. In light heavyweight news, per tweet from Michael Benson, I'm sure that most of you have heard by now that Artur Beterbiev has announced he's tested positive for coronavirus. So his January 30th light heavyweight title defense against Adam Deinis has been postponed. I want to say that, Artur's a skilled fighter. Anybody who's seen him in action will know that. He's a skilled fighter. He's a devastating puncher, perhaps the most devastating puncher in the entirety of the light heavyweight division. That being said, this guy's just got bad luck, man.
Yeah.
I've never seen a fighter experience so many issues in their career in sequence quite like Artur, between not getting to fight as much as he wanted to, promotional issues, subsequently being between promoters, breaking his ribs in sparring, to subsequently catching the coronavirus. Something always seems to keep this guy out of the ring. And for context, for perspective, this is a guy who's got, less than 20 professional fights. And this is a guy who's no spring chicken. Understand that Artur Beterbiev is in his mid-30s,
Yeesh.
This ain't some tween that can afford to lose the time and bounce back without issue. Artur Beterbiev is in his mid-30s. He is.
And time is a luxury that he ain't got.
Prize fighting, you make what money you can while you can. And it just feels like Artur isn't getting to carry out his career to his full potential due to what always seemed to be unforeseen circumstances. He had issues with his then promoter, Yvon Michel. He wanted to fight more often. He engaged in a legal battle to break away from that promoter, and it worked,
It did.
He may not have gotten to fight as much as he wanted to, but he did break away from Yvon Michel, though that is time that he won't get back. Time spent on that. And, he made a brief appearance on DAZN, subsequently moved over to Top Rank. It seemed like we were going to start seeing more of Artur Beterbiev. And it didn't take long before the people at Top Rank put him in that unification match with Alexander Vostok. But now it just feels like there's always something keeping him out of the ring. He was supposed to have a title defense, and he ended up getting injured in sparring. He broke a rib. He bounces back from that. They reschedule the fight. Now the guy's got coronavirus.
For God's sake, man.
Yeah. I'm not blaming Artur for any of this. It's not his fault. It's just that, something always seems to happen. Something is always stifling his career, and it's a great pity because the guy's a pleasure to watch.
Quality operator.
Just given how things have happened the last couple of years for Artur, it really does leave you with a feeling that this is a fighter who isn't really fighting to their potential because of these unforeseen circumstances that
It's not his fault, but it is what it is.
And finally, ahead of this week's big clash in the land of the rising sun, WBO Super Flyweight Champion Kazuchika Ioka says, "I wish Estrada Chocolatito the best. Look forward to fighting them soon in America." An excerpt from the article reads, "Ioka still has to get past Tanaka, who enters this Thursday's headliner as a favorite according to BetMGM Sportsbook. A win will allow him to look to next March when Estrada and Gonzalez collide in a mouth-watering unification bout and rematch to their November 2012 Classic. I would love to fight Estrada and/or Chocolatito." Ioka, with a professional record of 25 wins, 2 losses, 14 knockouts, told BoxingScene.com. They are both great champions that I highly respect. I hope that will be the case, admits Ioka, whose lone stateside appearance came in a September 2018 points decision win over McWilliams Arroyo in Inglewood, California. "I wish Estrada and Gonzalez the best and look forward to fighting them soon in America." And I guess that's the silver lining in all of this. That whether you're banking on Kosei Tanaka to win, like I am, or you're betting on Kazuchika Ioka to win, either way, it's the fans that get the better end of it.
It really is the fans that win.
If I'm being honest, I don't think that Kazuchika Ioka is going to hang on to that WBO title. History awaits Kosei Tanaka, who could soon become the fastest 4-division champion and the youngest in the history of the sport of boxing. I look at this situation and I see a situation to where perhaps Kazuto is more experienced on bigger stages than Kosei Tanaka. Kosei, who's already a 3-division champion at 25 years old? And perhaps there are things working for Kazuto, experience among them, but I see this situation and I just see a situation where Kosei wants it more.
He's the one who has the chance of making history.
Regardless of what future prospects and future plans the already distinguished champion Kazuchika Ioka might have, I just see a situation where, this is old lion versus young lion. And I just feel like Kosei wants it more. There's no other way to put it. But in the event that I'm wrong, in the event that Kazuto hangs on to that WBO super flyweight title, that's not cause for concern. That's not bad news either, because you heard it how I heard it. This guy, if he wins, has plans of seeing the winner, Chocolatito versus Estrada 2, the sequel, set to go down a few months into next year. And I'm okay with that, believe you me, I am. At a time where many divisions and many fights aren't happening because of the politics of it all. It's great to see that the super flyweight division stays one of the best divisions, because in the super flyweight division, unlike several others, the best guys really do fight the best guys. This is a division that doesn't get the same attention as some others in the West, but those divisions, unlike this one, they don't give you these kind of high-quality matchups on a regular basis. You guys saw the Estrada versus Quadras rematch.
Good fight.
You guys see what Estrada's about to do thereafter. He's about to take on Chocolatito, while Kazuto Ioka attempts to extend his reign against his countryman Kosei Tanaka. This is a fight that promises to be a high-octane, high-volume slobber knocker.
Both these fuck guys stole a lot of punches.
This fight won't be going down during the conventional hours, primetime hours for a boxing match here in the West. This is going to go down on what is, New Year's Eve for us, but very early in the morning.
Think the card starts at 4 a.m.?
Just believe me when I tell you, it's going to be a hell of a fight. And if you happen to be up that early in the morning, you don't want to miss this. Believe you me.